Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today I'm celebrating a milestone, 1,000 subscribers on the channel. It's been a fantastic journey getting to share my love of cards with you guys, and I've loved the chance to connect with some of you guys along the way. So thank you to everybody who subscribed, and I'm looking forward to a lot more. But for 1,000, I decided it'd be a great time to take a look at my absolute favorite deck in my entire collection, and that's the Tigers limited edition deck from King's Wild Project. This deck draws its inspiration from a couple of different places. One of the things I love about designer Jackson Robinson is the really unique places that he draws inspiration from. And this particular one, he looked to vintage matchbooks. Matchbooks at the, especially back years or even a century ago, were really just a great miniature canvas for artwork, whether it was advertising for like a restaurant or a bar, or just some unique artwork. Matchbooks were a place where you could find some really unique designs. And so he decided to do a deck of playing cards inspired by those matchbook covers, but he also drew inspiration from the original Russell and Morgan Tigers deck. So Tigers sort of became the brand of the matchsticks. Russell and Morgan Tigers is a deck that was originally produced back in 1881. Russell and Morgan produced a few different designs, including Tigers 101 as one of their very first decks. Russell and Morgan would go on to change their name 10 years later in 1891 to the one we know it by today, the U.S. Playing Card Company. So very cool to see this unique and vintage inspired deck that kind of draws from a couple of different places. So let's see how it all comes together. Now, starting with the case. Now, we're not looking at the tuck case here. We're actually looking at the outer box. So it's a large box that houses the tuck case inside. The box itself is a really thick cardboard. You can kind of see how thick it is there. Very thick, very sturdy cardboard, and it's covered with sort of this soft touch material with a kind of vintage style printing on it. On the front, in a whole series of reds and yellows, greens and blues, you've got Tigers playing cards, along with sort of the logo of the matchbook right here with the large tiger emblem. And then you have something that I love from vintage old style advertising. You've got just reams of copy on here. So you've got quality playing cards for the discerning card player, card count 56, and then designed by Jackson Robinson and produced by King's Wild Project Incorporated. And the playing cards themselves are printed and manufactured in the USA by the USPCC. We got the little number 13 in the corner, so where the Tigers were originally the 101 deck, Jackson Robinson always labels his decks as number 13, so you'll see that appear on a lot of his decks. And I love the usage of color. And if you zoom in, you'll see it's actually using a colorization process that's known as Ben-Day dots. It's this idea of using little tiny dots to create complex colors. So what looks kind of orange at a distance here is actually yellow with a series of red dots, or red with a series of yellow dots to kind of create that blended color. But it's a cool printing process that you see a lot in like the 50s and 60s in comic books. So very, very cool. Now the rest of the box is designed to look like a matchbook or like a matchstick box. So on one side, on the back here, you've got King's Wild Tigers along with their website. You've got King's Wild Tigers in big, bold lettering on the other side. And on this side, you even have the little strike plate. It's actually just a little piece of red sandpaper, along with "For a great shuffle every time, strike here." Great little attention to detail, but yeah, this is actual sandpaper over here. So you could actually use this to strike a match. On the back here, you've got more copious amounts of ad copy. Love this at the top. If you're looking for the finest playing cards in the world, be sure to choose the King's Wild Tigers. And then more ad copy for King's Wild Project, large designed in the USA seal. And then down here, don't be caught at the table with an inferior deck of cards. Always bring the best. Insist on King's Wild Tigers. Down this side, you'll see this one kind of opens from the side here and slides out just like matchbook would. And it's got this kind of three-part seal that kind of bands around the side. On one side, you have one that's really reminiscent of the original King's Wild, or the original Tigers deck from Russell and Morgan. That's the exact image of a tiger they used, and it has King's Wild Project as well as Austin, Texas on there. Aim small, shoot straight written down the sides. So very cool little seal on that side. This side over here has Roman numerals for 2018 when the deck was printed, and is hand numbered. This one's number 189 out of a total of 1,000 decks. And then on the other side, more of that seal style, this time with the Kingswile Project logo in the center. And like I said, it does slide open just like a matchbook. So very cool, and you can kind of get that inner slide there. And you get a copy of the display version of the limited deck inside. And if I pull this out, let's see if I can get this out. And as you pull this out, you'll see there's also printing on the inside here. Love this. So you can imagine like if this was filled up with matchsticks and you picked them all out and say, time to order more Tigers playing cards. The best playing cards east and west of the Mississippi. And you get some of that nice weathering or weathered sort of look on the inside. And then there's also printing with a band down the interior here that just says Kingswile Tigers. So very cool tuck. Love how it opens up just like a vintage matchbook. Very, very cool. Love that look. And then like I said, on the inside, you have a really nondescript tuck case for the display deck. So you do have the limited edition cards within here, but the tuck itself, very, very nondescript, not much to it, just a plain white. But this right here, the absolute highlight of the entire deck, absolutely beautiful. Now that said, the cards themselves are beautiful as well. Now this particular one, the one that came with this one, I've never opened. So this one's sealed up, but I do have another copy of the display deck that I have opened that we can take a look at. And here it is. So like I said, it's just a plain white tuck here with really minimalistic printing on it, almost in the style of kind of stamped on, has Tigers limited edition display deck by Jackson Robinson. Sides, Kingswile Tigers, Kingswile Tigers. Bottom has some ad copy for Kingswile Tigers, as well as a nod to his signature Bible verse, 1 Thessalonians 4:11. And then top, plain white, and the back has an enlarged version so you can see what that original Tigers seal looks like, modified with Kingswile Project copy around it. There is that. And then nothing at all printed on the interior of the tuck other than work with your hands, a segment from that Bible verse right there on the inner flap. And then you can pull it out and see the cards themselves. So that is the tuck case. I wish they'd kind of done something a little bit fancier with the tuck case itself. That said, with this outer case, really nothing at all to complain about. Now the cards themselves, the first card you're going to see right out is going to be this very cool gaff card, and it's the matchbooks or the matchsticks. So you got these green headed matchsticks, and you can imagine this is something that you could make use of, you know, if you had this open as a set of matches, right? You could put that in there and almost give it that realistic look like you're opening up a box of matches. So very cool extra little touch there with that extra card. You get a pair of jokers as well. Fairly similar, one with the red tips on the matches, one with the green tips. And you get those matches crisscrossed across the back, and almost kind of a poker chip with that tiger inspired by the original 101 decks tiger in the middle. The green one says a perfect strike every time, and the red one says don't get fooled, choose only tigers. So kind of keeping in line with that, you know, over-the-top advertising copy that you might see on decks. But very cool. I love how vibrant that tiger looks in there. And then the last extra card that you get is this one, which has kind of a blue or aqua colored box with the fully written out 1 Thessalonians 4:11 verse. So make it your ambition to lead a quiet life, etc. And then a little dedication down there at the bottom. So that's the extra card you get. The back design of the cards as well is, I will say, reminiscent of, it's kind of a fancied up version of the original back design that you'd see from Russell and Morgan. Russell and Morgan did do the really borderless design with kind of this repeated pattern in here, but this one's done up a little bit fancier. You can see the circles and the little florets in there. So it's a kind of a red, blue, or the kind of primary colors that are used in there to make up this really striking borderless back design. Really, really nicely done. And I will say for me, for as USPCC decks go, the registration on my deck at least is pretty spot on. So that's nice to see. So that's the back design of the cards. Now getting into the deck, you get more just beautiful attention to detail, starting right away with the Ace of Spades. Features the large spade pip in the center with kind of scratched on weathering to give it that vintage feel. And then you have the red and blue banners crisscrossed in the back, King's Wild Tigers, and a series of banners with luxury playing cards designed by Jackson Robinson and crafted in the United States of America. And then your eyes immediately drawn to that pair of prowling tigers on either side of the spade pip. Really beautiful, really bright, vibrant design to the cards, and yet vintage at the same time. Have a really small Pippin index in the corner. It's the same thing you're going to see on all the cards, really kind of miniature almost Pippin index, but nothing special on the fonts or anything like that. The number cards do have really beautiful weathering on the cards to kind of give it a vintage feel. All that weathering is kind of unique as you go from card to card, so you're not going to see repeated weathering. Nice attention to detail. And same goes for the pips themselves. Fairly standard styling to the pips, but you'll see that it gets a little bit of weathering and speckling, kind of gives it a little bit more of that vintage feel. And every single pip is going to have unique weathering on it. Number cards, otherwise, you have kind of oversized pips in the center. Fairly standard layout, other than being spread out and taking up a bunch more of the card. But really beautiful, simple, and love the weathering on these. But then you get to the quartz. And outside of the outer box, this is probably my favorite part. And here they are, of course, done up as tigers. Now, the original Russell and Morgan deck had classically styled quartz, the Jack, Queen, King that we're all used to. They were full body like these, and they were in the same poses. So Jackson's really kind of drawn on that and kind of pulled them out, reimagined those original quartz as tigers, and that's what you see here today. So just as an example, right here's the Jack of Spades from this deck, and I'll try to include right over here a picture of the Jack of Spades from the original Tigers deck from Russell and Morgan, just so you can see those side by side. A very, very cool touch, and the same goes for every one of the quartz. You get lots of color, more of those Ben-Day dots. You can see when you zoom in up close, those kind of series of colors and dots that form up the image, but really beautiful. Love the vintage nod on these. All of the aces are going to feature kind of a semi-power ace feel to them. So the ace of diamonds has Stay Sharp on it, and then kind of this cool multiple diamonds in there. And then pretty standard red on the red pips, and then more of those beautiful tiger quartz. Love how these are reimagined. I love them as the one-way quartz. Just a really, really cool look to them. And then there's your club quartz, the blue and green background. I like the look of that one. And then through the club number cards and our final quartz, we'll start with the ace of clubs. So you got Strike True on that one. And then your final quartz is King of Hearts, might be my favorite one of them in the deck. I love that kind of dead-on stare that he's giving. Very menacing. And then down through the heart number cards and finishing with the Ace of Hearts, Shoot Straight. So that is the deck. Now, they are produced by USPCC, so they're going to handle nicely. I don't know if this is going to be necessarily a deck you're going to be using beyond just as a collector's deck, but if you want to use this in fans, anything like that, it looks beautiful and striking with that borderless design. And, if you're just mediocre at fanning, also a really forgiving back design, so your fans will look great even if you're less than perfect on them. So they will handle really well. And that gets down to the last question of the reviews, which is usually, what are you going to use these for? This is a deck that absolutely, hands down, you could use for gameplay, for Magic, without a doubt. I think it's a really striking, beautiful deck. Obviously, the borderless back design somewhat limits it for Magic. That said, it's an absolutely functional deck, which is something I love about it. That said, it is really primarily there as a collector's deck. I mean, it's a limited edition 1,000 deck run. I'm gonna guess that less than 100 of these are actually opened up. I've got one of the few that actually opened mine up. So most of these are probably staying in the case and designed as a beautiful art piece, and I think they're more than worthy on that front as well. One of my absolute favorite decks. I love the inspiration. I love bringing in new designs with vintage inspirations. There's just so much to absolutely love about this deck. So that's it. Celebration of 1,000 subscribers and a look at my favorite deck, the King's Wild Tigers, the limited edition version. Really beautiful deck. Hope you guys enjoy the rare chance to kind of get a look at this deck in its entirety. I absolutely love it. Pull it out probably at least once a week, even with the hundreds of decks in my collection. Pull it out to take a look at it as much as I can because I absolutely love the deck. So that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what other decks you want to see as I push on my way to 2,000 subscribers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.